Growing outrage over dangerous, defective airbags that can explode like miniature bombs inside your car. A partial recall is still sparking confusion for millions of drivers. And breaking this morning, the government safety watchdog under fire for its handling of that recall is now facing a new federal investigation. Here's ABC's David Curley.
The Department of Transportation says it's going to look into how its National Highway Transportation Safety Administration handled the recall of millions of cars containing the potentially deadly equipment. The problem has been around for years, but it was just this Monday that the agency told drivers to bring in their vehicles immediately. And the list of affected cars was incomplete by a few million. And the website to check to see if your car is recalled crashed. On Thursday, a harsh accusation from two senators. The agency's response was glacial over the course of years. It all started in 2004, when an airbag made by manufacturer Takata injured a Honda driver. Honda settled that case and started looking into the problem. That problem? The airbag inflator can explode too strongly in a humid climate, turning the metal cap into shards of shrapnel.
The expansion rate is so fast and so quick and violent that it actually expands this metal portion.
But Honda didn't issue any recalls until 2008, and then for only about 4,200 cars. The watchdog agency did open an investigation in 2009, but shut it down quickly. This week, it was nearly 8 million drivers told they should urgently replace defective airbags used by nearly a dozen of the world's biggest brands. But the replacement parts just aren't there, leaving some manufacturers in the position of offering to turn off passenger-side airbags and telling people not to sit there. Regulators say it's legal, something the senators, Markey and Blumenthal, say leaves them not just alarmed, but astonished. For This Week, David Curley, ABC News, Washington.
Thanks, David. Now, one of the senators who wrote that letter and is calling for a nationwide recall, Richard Blumenthal from Connecticut. Senator, we learned from that report Congress is gearing up to investigate NHTSA. What should they have done and when?
What they should have done is issue a national recall, not a selective, limited recall that applies to certain geographic regions that supposedly have higher humidity. They also should require the manufacturers to issue loaners or rental cars at no cost to the car owners so that they can drive safely in the meantime. Disabling the airbags is of very questionable legality. In fact, I'd argue it is blatantly illegal without a finding from the Secretary of Transportation that there's a basis for this exemption. And what also needs to happen in the long run is NHTSA needs to be overhauled. It really is a prisoner of a culture of capture, too close to the industry.
What about the car companies? I mean, how much liability should they have in this? So is the government and the car companies?
The car companies have a responsibility here to support a national recall and issue these loaners, and also to support an overhaul of NHTSA so that it can be much more vigilant and vigorous in protecting auto safety.
Senator, one of the things that was really stunning to me in reading about this case is the secrecy. Honda was settling some of these cases with people who'd been injured in confidential deals with them. How does that happen? And then there was no recall.
That is a profoundly important point and one that's often overlooked. Thank you for asking about it. I propose legislation that would end these secret settlements because sunshine in litigation is absolutely necessary. The public is informed about defects that lead to litigation. Too often, the courts approve these secret settlements. If the public were aware of the lawsuits that are brought, if they were settled in open view, available to the public, there would be much quicker and more vigorous action to end the defects that lead to these horrendous crashes and exploding airbags in this case.
And just quickly on this last question, is part of the problem that NHTSA is so small? I read that the Office of Defects has 51 employees tracing 250 million cars. So is it just too small?
Resources are very, very important. NHTSA is probably too small, but the culture is important. This culture of capture the collegial or friendly relationship with the automakers, and the automakers have a responsibility here to expedite replacement parts so that the defective airbags can be repaired, and NHTSA ought to be all over this industry. There are times when a good working relationship is fine, but there are also times when the relationship has to be confrontational, not collegial, and NHTSA is maybe too small, but the culture needs to be changed as well.
Thanks so much, Senator Blumenthal, for joining us.